We have a quorum, so we can begin, but we've got to just wait. Melissa is just going live online, so just give us a few seconds and then we can. There you go.
We are live. Good morning, everyone. And thank you for attending the RTA's meeting of the Board of Directors. I want to review a few guidelines for our meeting today. For those of you who are here in person, which is almost everybody as usual, please turn your microphones on when you wish to speak and off when you are done, so we limit the microphones to one at a time. And I'll call on those who have questions or comments for those of you who are here in person. For the remote callers, please keep your audio on mute as much as possible to minimize background noise, as these are recorded. And when you have a question or comment, please raise your virtual hand and the secretary will call you. And if you can, try to remember to lower your hand. It's always great to see it on the screen, and unmute before you're speaking. With that said, I will now officially call the meeting of the Board of Directors of the Regional Transportation Authority for Northeastern Illinois to order. And would everyone in attendance, including our audience, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I sort of miss former Director Friga, who was a big veterans advocate, as well as Pat Durrani to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Good morning, everyone. Director Alvarez, Director Carey.
Here.
Director Colson. Here. Director Gorman.
Here.
Director Groven.
Here.
Director Jenkins. Tarek.
Here.
Dr. Lewis.
Here.
Dr. Mondero.
Here.
Dr. Rotondo.
Here.
Dr. Ross.
Here.
Dr. Ryan.
Here.
Dr. Sager. Dr. Sonoga.
Present.
Dr. Walker.
Here.
And Chairman Dillard.
Present.
We have 16 present.
Excellent. We have a quorum. Item 3 is we are going to go into executive session. So with that, let me ask our legal counsel or Joey, Madam Secretary, if you want to give us whatever direction we need to, and if you want to recite why we have to or what our exception is, please do so.
So we're gonna go, I'm gonna read this, we'll take a vote to come back and then come back. And then we're gonna adjourn to the 15th floor for the executive session. I'll go ahead and read the exception. Pursuant to Section 2C29 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act, the board may now vote to move into executive session to discuss an audit matter.
Great. Any questions on that? So how about a motion in a second that we resolve ourselves into executive session? Obviously, we will come back after the executive session because, and we have the reason we're going into executive session. We'll come back and pick up with item 4 on our agenda after we go into executive session. Director Walker moves we go into executive session, seconded by Director Gorman. On that, take a roll call if you would, Madam Secretary.
Director Alvarez, Director Carey.
Aye.
Director Colson.
Aye.
Director Gorman.
Aye.
Director Groven.
Aye.
Dr. Jenkins. Dr. Tarek.
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Yes.
Dr. Mondero.
Yes.
Dr. Rotondo.
Yes.
Director Ross.
Yes.
Director Ryan.
Yes.
Dr. Sager. Micah.
Aye.
Dr. Walker.
Aye.
Chairman Dillard.
Yes.
15 ayes.
Thank you. So we will go into executive session and we will come back. It's hard to estimate how much time it will take in executive session. Last time I said 15 minutes and it was 45. So, but we should be back hopefully, around the top of the hour. So we are in executive session and we will return. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we're good to go.
Thank you. We are back out of, do I need a motion or anything to get us out of executive session? So we are back from our executive session, and we are on item 4, which is the approval of the minutes from the board meeting held on April 16th of 2026. Any comments or corrections? If not, Director Walker moves, seconded by Director Kotarek, that we approve the minutes from April 16th. And with that, Madam Secretary, take a roll call on the approval of the minutes.
Sure. Director Alvarez? Director Carey?
Aye.
Dr. Colson? Dr. Gorman? Aye. Dr. Groven? Dr. Jenkins? Dr. Targ?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Yes.
Dr. Bandera? Dr. Rotondo?
Yes.
Dr. Bandera?
Yes.
Dr. Ross?
Yes.
Dr. Ryan?
Yes.
Dr. Sager?
Yes.
Dr. Smika?
Aye.
Dr. Walker?
Aye.
And Chairman Dillard.
Aye, and Director Jenkins, you want to be on the roll call to approve the minutes from last time? And add, Madam Secretary, I don't know if Director Jenkins was on the original attendance roll call, but if not, please add her. So the approval, it is approved. Our minutes are approved from the April 16th, 2026
Chairman
meeting. Yes, Director Gorman.
You know, I noticed, and I should have brought this up when we met for our pre-board meeting. It showed me absent and I was remote for the previous board, if that can be adjusted.
Oh, I can adjust it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for calling that out, Director Gorman. Item 5, public comment segment of today's meeting. Any comments received now will be read in the record by the board secretary, and I know we have one. So why don't you do that, Joey?
Good morning, Regional Transportation Authority board members and transit agency staff. Thank you forevermore for your collective public service to head out the 2026 fiscal cliff. Sustainable Englewood Initiatives, SEI, is a community-based advocacy organization working on transportation accessibility, environmental solutions, clean drinking water, public safety strategies, zoning variances, heat vulnerability indexing, and the Emmett Till commemoration Till Justice Rings Project 2025 to 2026. First, thank you CTA for adding the Green Line Englewood leg of the service line to conduct a transit-oriented development plan. This will add value to our continued work to introduce balanced development along community assets like our public rail system in order to grow the economy and population. Special note, Transport Chicago Conference approved Greater Englewood entry to present a photo exhibit of the Green Line modernization plan along West 63rd. We wish to add our regional support to the following ordinances. 2026 budget, 132 million NEDA spending plan is approach to public safety, ADA services, fair restructuring, cost containment, and land use planning. 2027 budget call, directing how the agency forms decisions on operating capital spending. 2-year financial budget plan 2028 to 29, 2027 to 2031 capital improvement plan, and coordinated human services transportation plan. This will help us with intergovernmental agreements underway across the region. We have grown to appreciate your collective work and are confident that the above ordinances are both thoughtful and prudent. Thank you all, John Paul Jones, President, Sustainable Inglewood Initiatives, Nature Trail Steward Consultant, Grow Greater Inglewood, co-founder, Redline Extension TIF Coalition, and coordinator, Southern Folk Intermodal Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Jones, for and others for submitting that. That's great. Anyone, I guess, anyone present here who today wishes to give testimony, Madam Secretary?
Yes, I believe there is one. Adam?
Good morning, Adam. Come on up.
Good morning, how you doing?
Good. Will you say your full name just because we record these things?
Yes, sir. My name is Adam Mack. Okay, I'm from, originally from the south side of Chicago in of the suburbs of the state of Illinois. And I would like to see Metro Train service to operate every 15 to 20 minutes, 7 days a week, instead of 1 to 2 hour gap under NETA. After the new agency takes effect after June 1st. Okay. And also, I would like to see live stream videos on the public transportation system everywhere and around the clock. But it needs to have a full approval by multiple transit boards. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. As I told you, we do record a lot. And I remember your comments from a month ago. And it was funny, Director Colson and I were just talking about more frequency of Metro service. So your points are really well taken. And, when NETA comes around, there will be more frequency and we'll look at your particular situation. Thank you, Adam, Mr. Mack, for being here. Again, appreciate it. Item 6, Leanne Redden, our Executive Director's report.
Just making sure we didn't have anyone else that wanted to address the board. So good morning, Chairman and members of the board. This is our final board meeting before the Northern Illinois Transit Authority goes into effect on June 1. So I wanted to provide just a little bit of information and some context as to what we're expecting to happen over the next couple of months. The governor, the mayor of Chicago, Cook County Board President, and the chairs of Lakeville, Kane, McHenry, and DuPage counties will each be appointing members to the new NETA board, with their terms beginning on September 1. And during that period, the Regional Transportation Authority will continue to operate, and we foresee no impacts to customer service offered by the agency, including some of the key things that I know the public work with us on is the ADA paratransit certification process, the access pilot card issuance, and other customer service functions. All contractual relationships between vendors and the 4 transit agencies across all 4 agencies will also not be impacted. We'll continue to communicate any updates or changes to you and the public via the RTA website, newsletter, and other social media channels. I also want to remind all of you that, and anyone listening, that our next board meeting will be Monday, June 1st. Moving back to our normal start time, I heard some comments, so we'll be starting at 9 a.m., not the 8 a.m. start on Monday, June 1st. So, and finally, I just wanted to note that earlier this week, myself and a couple of staff members attended APTA's Mobility Conference and their International Bus Rodeo and Workforce Summit held in Salt Lake City. The events of those few days brought together about 2,000 bus and paratransit professionals across the industry. Really well timed for conversations around a lot of the challenges that the industry is facing, including service planning, design of bus rapid transit networks, just to give you a sort of a flavor of some of the topics. I also had the pleasure of chairing the executive committee meeting of the APTA board, where we also met with both their legislative staff and the legislative committee members. Well timed, and I'll touch on this in a minute because the first draft of the TNI's Transportation and Infrastructure Service Transportation Bill dropped when we were there. I also had the honor of going out to the bus rodeo. If anyone doesn't know what a bus rodeo, no, there were no horses, contrary to being in Salt Lake City. People might have thought there were horses and cowboys. There were cowboys. But it's an opportunity for our frontline workers and bus operators, mechanics and supervisors to actually go and compete, to be amongst the best of the best and drive courses, provide and show off their certain skills. I had the honor of cheering on CTA's own operator who was entered into the competition as well. So that was kind of a fun little aside on Sunday, early Sunday morning. But as I noted, it was very beneficial for us to gather with industry leaders at this time as the legislation was dropped, and it was an opportunity for us to start digesting kind of some of those components of the start of this effort on a federal legislative front. So moving on. Okay. Oh, sorry, you jumped. Yeah. Moving on, as I noted, the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee released their draft Surface Transportation Reauthorization Bill this past, was it Sunday or Monday? I actually can't remember what day it specifically was now. Named the Build America 250 Act. It was on May 17 that they dropped it in advance of a planned committee markup, which is happening on the Hill today. The current surface transportation law, just for reminder purposes, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act expires September 30, and Congress must act on something. So they either have to act on a new reauthorization or pass an extension of the existing one so programs across the country can continue. The current draft that was released increases total guaranteed transportation funding by just over 4%. To $474 billion over 5 years, with an additional $106 billion subject to appropriations. A new funding stream is established through a registration fee for electric and hybrid vehicles. The bill also includes several reforms on transit policy, including changes to environmental and accessibility requirements in capital spending. RTA staff will continue to work with APTA staff and other industry partners on providing feedback to the committee on the strengths and some of the weaknesses in this current draft as they relate specifically to our region. We are encouraged by the Act's many policy initiatives to accelerate project delivery by eliminating statutory and regulatory barriers across many of our projects. That really, I think, can help us in advancing projects faster in a more efficient manner. We are also, there are some key policy areas of concern that we will continue to work with both the administration and committee staff going forward, both on the House and the Senate side. One of the concern areas is the establishment of a consolidated state block grant program. Some limiting of federal contribution for bus procurements, putting a cap on that, and imposing new mandates on state and local public transit agencies. Beyond the Thursday markup, there is no specific detailed timeline for the bill to advance in the House, or no information yet on the Senate side for it to release its draft language. So with closely divided Congress and the November midterms approaching, the prospects of actually passing a new surface transportation bill by September 30 is questionable and certainly uncertain. Even if it doesn't advance in the near term, the funding and the policies included in the Build America 250 Act, we anticipate sort of seeing as the start of the conversation, serve as a baseline for as those discussions continue in the coming months and perhaps a little longer, as we look to advance additional funding and stability for the transit systems. Moving to the General Assembly on April 22, the House Appropriations, Public Safety and Infrastructure Committee held its hearing with the RTA and the service boards ahead of the budget negotiations for the state's fiscal year. The staff presented an overview of the regional transit operating budget, RTA agency budget, and the upcoming transition to Northern Illinois Transit Authority. Speaker Welsh and Senate President Harmon introduced identical bills containing the governor's proposed 27 budget, which includes all expected transit appropriations as lawmakers continue to negotiate on the budgetary priorities in the coming week and a half or so. The deadline for state lawmakers to advance legislation in its opposite chamber is tomorrow. And the final legislative deadline before the Illinois General Assembly is scheduled to adjourn. That was the final, I should say, legislative deadline before they're scheduled to adjourn on Sunday, May 31st. Just a quick snapshot of today's agenda. Today, the RTA Transit Access and Citizens Advisory Board Chair Ryan Rule will give you a presentation. The RTA CAB met for its final time last month and will be reformed under the NEDA Act at a future date. After that, we will ask each of you to act on several items, including the first quarter financials and performance measures, the federal capital allocations and the quarterly capital amendment, an amendment to the 2026 regional budget, approval of the 2027 budget call, as well as some additional ordinances and contracts. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will turn it back to you.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments for Leanne? If not, let's get into the agenda then, which is item 7A, is the update on the activities of the RTA Transit Access Citizens Advisory Board. And Ryan Rule, good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Dillard and members of the Board of Directors. I'm Ryan Ruley and have been serving as the chair of the RTA Citizens Advisory Board. As you may know, the NEDA Act requires that a new Riders Advisory Council is appointed by the NEDA Board, which will replace the RTA CAB. And as such, I will be providing my final update this morning, as Leanne just mentioned, pertaining to the meeting held on April 26, 2026, which concluded the operations of the RTA CAB. I'd like to say it's been a pleasure serving as the chair and the Cook County representative of the RTA CAB over the past 2 years. I truly believe transit governing bodies are best equipped to make informed decisions when they're able to channel the observations, desires, and perspectives of those who ride the system. And I hope my reports to this body have been helpful in that regard. Looking ahead, I'm excited to see what the future holds for our transit network and hope to continue working with NEDA to help expand upon this world-class system. I'd also like to express my appreciation to several RTA staff members who ensured the CAB was provided highly relevant and timely information that fulfilled the very large list of topics set out by our bylaws. So Rob Nash, Peter Kirsten, Doug Anderson, Heather Mullins, and Kyle Whitehead, just to name a few, for their regular updates and presentations, and especially to Kendra Johnson and Michael Vandekreek for organizing and administering the communications among the members, as well as for assisting me with leading the meetings. So with that, I'll now move on to my report on last month's meeting. First, during the January CAB meeting, members had resolved to develop a list of recommendations that represent rider interests pertaining to the NETA transition. And they requested that staff provide that list to both the RTA and NETA boards for consideration. And accordingly, staff collected and distributed recommendations among members which were approved by the CAB at last month's meeting. A full written summary of these recommendations has been provided for your review, which I encourage you to read through if you have not already. I will not review the entire list with you this morning in the interest of time. However, would like to mention a few key highlights, which hopefully provide you with a representative summary of their feedback. First, members requested enhanced communication and greater interaction between the Future Riders Advisory Council and the NETA board, and specifically that the board solicit advisory member feedback on key issues that are being brought before the board for consideration at its meetings, and in particular, those issues that affect service and the overall passenger experience. Another recurrent theme included encouraging the timely selection of NETA board members and focusing on finding individuals with diverse transit and management expertise. Additionally, CAB members request both the current RTA and future NETA be mindful of the gap we now face in the rider representation during the transition process and urgent expediency in setting up new rider advisory council. Additional topics members cited include prioritizing safety and security, enhancing dial-a-ride and paratransit services, expanding disability awareness and training, improving the frequency, reliability, and cleanliness of transit service, improving communications with riders, and expanding suburban representation in service and capital planning processes. Another important item discussed during the April meeting was a preview of the draft operating budget amendment that you will be voting on this morning, which was presented by Peter Kirsten, Division Manager of Regional Planning. RTA CAB members asked clarifying questions about the proposed safety and security initiatives and were overall supportive of the projects included in this amendment. And I want to acknowledge here that this is precisely the type of board-to-board interaction that members had encouraged in the list of recommendations I just spoke about. So thanks again to staff for the responsiveness in this regard, and please keep up the good work. The last main item of business at the April CAB meeting was a series of 4 presentations from county DOT members on their county's dial-a-ride programs. These included the MC Ride program in McHenry County, the Hinsdale Lake Terrace Rideshare program in DuPage County, the Ride and Cane program, and the Access Will County program. The DOT reps discussed how the administration of these programs have been modernized in recent years, and in each case noted positive outcomes of ridership growth. Although members were pleased to report on these successes, they also expressed concerns regarding longer-term financial sustainability. As you may know, the NETA Act requires that a study be conducted to review how dial-a-ride services are administered throughout the region currently, and then provide guidance on the future structure and integration of those services. As such, and in addition to fully funding these services, the county DOT reps all expressed interest in collaborating with NETA towards this pending streamlining of operations and overall in securing future success. As we wrapped up this last meeting of the RTA CAB, members expressed appreciation that they were engaged by staff to provide input on transit in this region, and many stated interest in serving in a similar capacity once the new Rider Advisory Council is inaugurated. This concludes my report. Thank you again for the opportunity to serve in this capacity. Be happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you very much for your outstanding service. Really, really, really appreciate it.
You're most welcome.
Any questions for Ryan? Dr. Gorman?
Thank you, Chairman Diller. Just comment, I just too want to thank you, Ryan, and the advisory members for the involvement and input that you guys all do in the service, you provide is outstanding. It's helpful. It's, an additional needed, layer, not just to us, but to the actual commuters being their voice, so we thank you for that. And we look forward to continued advisory service, with the NETA board. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Quinteric?
Ryan, big thanks for all of your service and particularly for your comments that are in here, and want to say that I appreciate the raw comments from everybody to see them unfiltered. I'd ask a question about prioritization and timing. Is there any of the suggestions or recommendations that the advisory board had put forth that you would recommend should be implemented June 1 or somewhere between June 1st and September 1st, which is that sort of really transition period?
Yeah, I think the thing that cab members had expressed the most concern about was the gap, and that there will not be a rider advisory council between now and when the next one is formed. So to the extent that that can be seated with expediency, I think that would be the highest priority item.
Anything from the rider perspective that you think is worth emphasizing and bumping up to that June or summer timeframe?
I think the safety issue, that was brought up quite a bit, and the service frequency. I think riders really want to see that, as we heard this morning as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Again, appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Item 8A are the resolutions certifying financial results and for the first quarter of 2026 and quarterly performance measures also. Malik and Sarah, good morning.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the board. I'm Malik Vaishnav, Senior Deputy Executive Director of Planning and Capital Programming. And as usual, I'm here today to provide an informational update on performance measures before Sarah will present the item that you'll be voting on. So my portion is for your information only. So to give some background, the RTA board certified in 2024 and 2025 that service boards have been in compliance with the legislation to publish monthly operational performance measures on staffing, service, and safety and security. Each of the service boards have continued to maintain website pages to report performance results. Today, I'll cover the current progress that CTA, Metro, and PACE have been making to continue these updates, even if the legislation has now expired and the future changes and decisions will be part of the NEDA Act. So this report is not sort of required by the omnibus legislation anymore. So as usual, I'll quickly go through each agency's performance dashboard and highlight a couple of things. This slide shows CTA's summary page for key performance measures, which is already updated for April 2026. So this includes data for April of this year. And as you can see, favorable results are in green, where things are improving, such as ridership gains. CTA ridership increased 2.3 million rides in the first quarter this year compared to last year. Bus operator hiring, elevator uptimes, bus deep cleans, reductions in bus gaps, and rail slow zones. Also improvements in bus service delivery and increased rail Saturday service. Unfavorable results or areas for potential improvement include decreased headcount on the rail side, increased absenteeism rates, escalator uptimes, and mostly around percentage of rail service delivered, especially on weekends. Metra's first quarter ridership increased over 700,000 rides compared to the first quarter of last year. Here you see a page on Metra's performance measures related to the number and percentage of train delays by line. The results shown here for the month of March 2026, out of the 17,000 plus train runs, 95% were considered on time, 2% had a delay of 15 minutes, and less than 2% had delay of 15 minutes or more. And 0.5% were canceled. So overall, good service delivery. Metro also publishes a monthly on-time performance reports with a lot more detail of peak, off-peak causes for delays, day of the week sort of detail in a separate report. Here you see PACE's first quarter ridership or first quarter employee data, but also PACE's first quarter ridership decreased 1.3%. The employee data here goes from January of 2025 to March of 2026. PACE has steadily hired new operators over the last 15 months. They're averaging about 29 additions per month. However, the attrition is also relatively high at 27 per month. So we still have ways to go in terms of building up the workforce, especially as the NEDA Act funding comes in for additional service next year and in the future. I also wanted to mention that in addition to the omnibus requirements, PACE is also now providing performance measures on ADA paratransit, which has been a piece of conversation before, including here the number of city and suburban trips, regional total trips by month, and the on-time performance, which generally ranges above 95%, but which is considered an on-time trip is considered if it arrives within 30 minutes of scheduled pickup time. So that is their definition of on-time reported for city, suburban, and region-wide. Moving on to safety and security, the board has provided comments in the past for RTA staff to do additional research and analysis of safety and security data. So we are taking a deeper dive into the City of Chicago open data portal that collects, reviews, and maps reported crimes on the CTA. This chart illustrates the total number of crimes reported by the CPD as having occurred on CTA property for January through April of 24, 25, and 26. So you're seeing 3 years of data for the last 4 months. And as you can see in black for the most recent year, you see the percentages of change from last year, from 2025. In each month, we have seen significant improvement in the numbers, fewer crimes being reported on the CTA, especially in the last couple of months. This is a really encouraging result and is directly correlated in timing to the major security surge implemented by CTA, which began in late 2025 and again saw another surge in March of 2026. We have been working to further analyze and report crime incident data by time of day, location, and CTA staff is also doing that for informing their deployment. This slide details the location of crimes committed on CTA by location on board the buses, at bus stops, at train stations, or on board the vehicle, and at other properties such as a parking lot. And again, the orange bars show 2024 results, gray are 25, and black are 2026. For the most part, except train station, you are seeing significant reduction in the number of incidents reported. One thing to note, as we see more surge, and if any incident occurs as more law enforcement is out there at train stations, it gets reported as a new incident. So that's why we also believe those incidents have increased, because there's more law enforcement out there documenting incidents as well. In addition to CPD crime data, our quarterly customer panel surveys that we have presented to you on provide an insight into passenger perceptions of public safety. And here we are able to measure it for all 6 counties. So this includes Metro and PACE as well. And as you can see in quarter first of 2026, all the measures related to public safety, where people feel safe at different parts of their journey, have improved compared to our previous measures. So again, while the surge on CTA is specific to certain areas right now, we are seeing improvements for our riders as they are reporting across the 6 counties, including Metro and PACE, which is also an encouraging result. So in terms of next steps, CTA and Metro and PACE will continue to consistently add data to their web pages on a monthly basis and keep them updated. As I mentioned, we are working forward with the NEDA Act to see how we can collaborate with the service boards and continue to measure effectiveness of new investments, including public safety pilots, and continue to survey our riders further. So with that, I'll pause here for any questions before turning it over to Sarah for the financial item that you'll be voting on.
Any questions, Malik, before we hear from Sarah? Great, thank you. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, good morning, Chairman Dillard and members of the board. I'm Sarah Rubino, Principal Analyst, and today I'll be asking the board to certify the Service Board's financial results through the first quarter of 2026 against the adopted operating budgets. Let's look at our primary metric for substantial accordance with budget, the operating deficit performance. Each service board, including ADA Paratransit, reported favorable to budget operating deficits due to lower than budgeted operating expenses. The CTA finished the first quarter essentially at budget, while Metro's operating deficit ended up 9.6% favorable. PACE Suburban Service reported a significantly favorable operating deficit of $62.3 million through March, which was nearly 23% positive to budget, as each expense category was lower than budget. ADA paratransit finished the first quarter favorable to budget by about $11 million, or 13.7%, due to lower than budgeted purchase transportation expense. This indicates that an ADA funding surplus may be developing this year, so ridership trends will need to be monitored closely. The system-wide operating deficit of the service boards, including ADA paratransit, was $781 million. This result is $53.1 million, or 6.4% favorable to budget. Accordingly, staff recommends a finding of insubstantial accordance with budget through the first quarter of 2026 for the results of the CTA, Metra, PACE Suburban Service, ADA paratransit, and the region as a whole, due to favorable operating deficit performance. Sales tax receipts have been strong for the first 2 months of the year. January sales tax came in 6% higher than the prior year, and February warrants of about $140 million indicate 7.6% growth compared to February of 2025, continuing the positive trend. We will continue to monitor the sales tax levels for any signs of economic weakening as we prepare the recommended 2027 funding amounts with the service boards. And that concludes my presentation. Back to you, Mr. Chairman, for any questions and a vote on the first quarter resolutions.
Thank you. Any questions? Comments? Dr. Sagar.
For the report, appreciate it very much. I mean, I think we're all aware of the fact that fuel prices are increasing dramatically, and so we've kind of quote unquote squeezed by, if you will, in a very favorable position, I might add, for the first quarter. But we would expect, I would expect, that we're not going to have quite as favorable situations as we look at the second, third quarters because of the fuel prices that are increasing dramatically. Additionally, I think that that's going to have an impact on monthly sales tax. People are, I think, making some difficult decisions in their local families and businesses. And so I would suggest that sales taxes are probably going to not be quite as robust, perhaps, as we look at that second and third quarters. Do you have any kind of thoughts about that, expectations? What is your
Right, so
opinion?
the fuel expense, like you said, was essentially flat across all service boards through March. We expect that to, once April and beyond, we expect that to change unfavorable, especially for PACE, since they don't lock in any of their fuel consumption at a fixed rate like the CTA and Metra do. So CTA and Metra are a bit more hedged on the higher fuel prices. Yesterday at PACE's meeting, they did say that they're tracking toward about a $4 million overrun in fuel if this trend continues, but that will likely be offset by the favorability in most of their other categories. So that's the expense side of it. Ridership will continue to monitor. So far, we haven't seen any large shifts in terms of people coming to transit due to the higher fuel prices, and same with sales tax. We work with our Moody's analytics for forecasts and the service boards, and we will begin those collaborations for when we set the marks for 27.
Yeah, I appreciate your comments.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks,
Chair.
Brian. Excellent questions. Any other questions? How about a motion and a second then that we approve 8A's item? Mayor Sonatka moves, seconded by Dr. Sagar, that we approve item 8A. And Joey, will you take a roll call, Madam Secretary, please?
Dr. Alvarez, Dr. Carey,
Aye.
Dr. Colson, Dr. Gorman,
Aye.
Dr. Groven, Dr. Jenkins,
Aye.
Dr. Katarik,
Aye.
Dr. Lewis,
Yes.
Darrow,
Yes.
Dr. Tondo,
Yes.
Dr. Ross,
Yes.
Dr. Ryan,
yes,
Dr. Sagar,
Yes.
Dr. Sonoyka,
Yes.
Dr. Walker, and Chairman Dillard.
Yes.
We have 14 ayes.
Thank you. So 8A's approved. Thanks, Sarah. Thank you, Malik, as always. 8B are the approval of letters of understanding with Indiana and Wisconsin for the 2026 federal funding allocations and amendment of our 2026 to 2030 capital program. It was always a delight when legislators always sort of said, you guys have some role with Wisconsin and Indiana. Explaining that one was always a joy to our wonderful state legislative friends. but we are a regional entity.
Indeed, we are. Good morning,
Thanks, Tara.
Chairman and members of the board. I'm Tara O'Malley, Principal Analyst in our Capital Program Department. We're here to request your approval of the two following ordinances, the authorizations to the attachments to the letters of understanding with Indiana and Wisconsin for the full 2026 federal formula allocations, and an amendment to the 2026 to 2030 capital program. Our first item for approval today is the apportionment of the 2026 federal formula funds. The federal apportionments were released on March 31st, 2026. On this slide, you see a summary of the full allocation split between the RTA and Northwestern Indiana Regional Planning Commission, also known as NRPC, and between RTA and Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, also known as SORPEC. The funding splits are based on the 2022 agreement between RTA and NRPC and RTA and SORPEC that covers from 2022 to 2026. NRPC and SORPEC have reviewed and accepted the calculated splits. It's important to note on this slide, it includes sections 5307, 5337, 5339, and 5310 funds. For Northeastern Illinois, RTA is the direct recipient of 5310 funds, while the other funds are sub-allocated directly to the service boards, which we'll see on the next slide. Looking at how the capital funds are allocated for 5307, 5337, and 5339 throughout the region. The region received $772 million, and the funds are allocated among the service boards using the performance-based allocation method. We are happy to report that the region received about 3.7% more funding than anticipated, netting about $27.5 million more than the estimate. Okay, sorry. Our second ordinance request is an amendment to the 2026 to 2030 capital program. There are proposed project and funding changes for all three service boards, plus the RTA. Collectively, the program is increasing by $159 million, bringing the 5-year funding total available to $8.65 billion. All three service boards programs are being amended to match the federal apportionments we just covered on the previous slide. In addition to this, this amendment also includes Metra and PACE, who are adding new competitive federal discretionary funds, lapsing federal formula funds returned to the RTA region from SORPEC, and reclaimed 2030 PAYGO funds based on allowable exemptions and documented delays. Metra is also reprogramming older state bond funds and state PAYGO funds. Let's look at some of the key changes. As in previous presentations, we're highlighting new funding coming to the region thanks to competitive federal funding awards for PACE and Metra. They both received community project funding grants totaling $4.7 million for the region. For Metra, $2.3 million is being allocated to two projects, the O'Hare Express Infrastructure Project and 91st Beverly Station improvements. For PACE, $2.5 million will be allocated to two projects also. The first is the Transit Signal Priority, also known as TSP, implementation along three different corridors, and 95th Street and Western Avenue Q-jump infrastructure signal improvements. Metra and PACE had a portion of the 2030 PAYGO funds withheld in accordance with the performance-based programming allocation method. As a reminder, the service boards need to meet two requirements to receive their full allocations. The first is maintain an average age of funds below 2.5 years, and the second is to spend at least 20% of the funding available. Metra had $14.1 million withheld, while PACE had $4.7 million withheld. Under the plan approved by the board, service boards are allowed to request exemptions and adjustments to reclaim some of the withheld funds. Metra regained $4 million and PACE regained $218,000. Some of the reported delays include significant NEPA and permitting delays, construction delays, and various vendor delays in delivering the projects such as new rail cars. Metra is allocating their reclaim funds to the zero emission train sets, and PACE is allocating their reclaim funds to the Pulse Cermax 22nd line. The remaining $14.5 million in withheld funds it will be programmed based on discussions with the NETA board. Metra is proposing to reprogram older Rebuild Illinois bond and PAYGO funds to better match project delivery timeline and funding needs, which in turn will help improve those performance-based metrics we just reviewed on the previous slide. They're reprogramming nearly $102 million in Rebuild Illinois bond funds, which was previously allocated to purchasing new rail cars that we just talked about as well. These funds are now being programmed to zero emission train sets, 5 bridge projects around the region, and Westmont Station. These projects are nearing construction or are expected to see expenditures in 2026 and 2027. In addition, $6.5 million in PAYGO funds are being reprogrammed to Auburn Park Station to match the two and to serve as matching funds to the two federal community project funds or projects that we just discussed on an earlier slide as well. By reprogramming these older funds, Metra should improve their delivery metrics used in the performance-based allocation. Wrapping up, staff requests adoption of the following ordinances: the attachments to the letters of understanding with Indiana and Wisconsin, and approval of the amendment to the 2026 to 2030 capital program. Happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we're seeking your approval.
Tarek.
Hey, I've got a question that might be for Leanne too on the federal reauthorization. So the bipartisan infrastructure law had a whole huge chunk of new capital funding for transit, which was great. And can we talk about what the new bill might have and what that delta is from that funding level for several years? Are we going to see net less funding? Will we see about the same? And then how does that translate into our forecast for the next 5 years in this capital program?
Yeah, I don't have the full breakout in front of me, but I know that overall we talk a lot about the color of money when Congress is talking about it, because if it's programmed versus, appropriated, potentially appropriated, there's a big difference, right? So looking at across the different like CIG and things like that. So it is early days, right? The overall number is slightly higher. The rail side of things is looking okay. The commuter rail and the rail title is perhaps a little bit more in question, I think. But I think on the transit side, it's looking at least okay. There's several other, but we're going to continue. I'll get you a summary of the breakout of each of the programs as it looks. This is, as you know, just out of T&I at this point. So.
Just in reviewing a little bit, if I'm understanding right, the bipartisan infrastructure law, to your color of money question, had the formula funding, transportation funding in the federal budget is unique, that it comes with both appropriations and authorizations.
Correct.
That's sort of the unique, nice place that transportation is. And then there's authorized but not yet appropriated money you can't count on. So we usually budget for that one that's guaranteed. Bipartisan infrastructure law sort of added a third color of money that was also guaranteed, called advanced appropriations. That goes away.
Yes.
So the net amount of real can kind of count on money goes down for us in capital spend, right?
Potentially a little bit, yeah, if that holds, and that's one of the key points that we're pushing. So it's it's up from what the president's budget was, because the president's budget wanted to eliminate even more, even sort of guaranteed funding, if you will. Yes, correct. The advance appropriations under the T&I proposal is gone. It's a point that, APTA is very strong on right now, testifying and commenting on this as we speak. So it will be a continued conversation piece. We will also be talking to our Illinois delegation about this, as well as our peers across the country, sort of pushing on those points. So, we kind of think about it as those three buckets, right? So you've got your formula, you've got your advance appropriations, and then the other monies that aren't guaranteed because they're subject to sort of annual appropriations.
I'll just put a comment in to also bring that conversation into Springfield as they're thinking about trailer bill legislation. A huge benefit for NETA is additional capital funding, and we want to make sure that that's there. Because
Absolutely.
really, here it is, the state's stepping up as the feds are sort of retrenching and making that investment, make sure it could be as robust as possible, I think. It's really
Yeah, I mean, we've got strong support on the Democratic side of the aisle. It's a continued conversation. Just a little bit to anchor people. I mean, the IIJA created a huge bump up from, previous years. And so we're considering sort of the IIJA, the law that's going to expire, as a kind of the floor and sort of build from there. This was perhaps this first initial draft was perhaps a little better than maybe some were even expecting, though, but it's still not fully where we want it to be. And then there's the policy implications that we have to continue to work on to make sure, because there are several sort of policy and unfunded mandate requirements and things like that are going to potentially present some big obstacles for people.
Director Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of questions. Tara, last year, I know on the regional federal formula allocations, we were in crisis mode trying to figure out if we were going to be able to, support public transit. So did the formula change, or is it pretty much about the same as it was last year?
No, it's about the same as last year. So the methodology.
The splits between the RTA and Indiana and Wisconsin. So it's about the same?
Yeah,
Okay.
so, well, the splits are the same, or the calculations are the same. And each region received, their allocated proportion, depending on number of factors, population, and such. So, yeah, we were able to, also, I think last year, if I'm not mistaken, there was maybe some new staff in one of our regional partners too. So there was like a little bit of lag time with getting some approvals with our regional partners, but everyone was right on top of it with understanding like how the calculations shook out.
The splits are basically relatively the same, but there's more money available.
Right,
So that's
right,
why it's
right,
going
yeah.
up. And just to clarify, this is for capital side of the equation, and a lot of the conversation we were having last year around the region's budget were really on the operating side of things.
Okay.
And so sort of just
Apples and oranges.
explaining the differences between the two there.
Okay. Well, second and final question. I was just trying to reconcile, you had the estimate at 744.46 versus the funding was at 782.62. What's the difference in those two numbers? Is there any reason for that, or?
Oh, yeah, so a couple of things. So let's go back. Sorry, I'm like, okay, so this very first slide where you see Regional Transportation Authority was 782 million. First of all, it includes 4 different funding sources. It includes 3 of the formula funds that go directly to the service boards, and which is 5307, 5337, and 5339. And then there's also 5310 funds, which comes directly to the RTA. So that's included in this dollar amount here. In this next slide, you can see the estimate where we estimated 744.46. We
Yes.
based that estimate off of what we received last year. And so when we left those dollar amounts flat from last year, not increasing or decreasing, we're like, let's just kind of keep the same since we've got IIJA and, we feel pretty good. And so then the actual for CTA, Metra, and PACE winds up being 771.9 million. And just because that difference between the 782 to 771 is the 5310 funds that are not included there.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Michael. Any other comments, questions for Tara? If not, how about a motion and a second to approve this item? Director Koterick moves, seconded by Director Sonika. With that, Joey, take a roll call, please.
Director Alvarez, Director Carey,
Aye.
Director Colson.
Aye.
Director Gorman,
Aye.
Director Groven, Director Jenkins,
Aye.
Dr. Katarik?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Yes.
Dr. Mondero?
Yes.
Dr. Rotundo?
Yes.
Dr. Ross?
Yes.
Dr. Ryan?
Yes.
Dr. Sagar? Ms. Sunoika?
Aye.
Dr. Walker? And Chairman Dillard.
Yes.
We have 13 ayes.
Great. That item is approved. Thank you. Next is 8C, and it's an ordinance approving the 2026 budget amendment. And up comes Peter Kirsten and Doug Anderson. Gentlemen, good morning.
Morning, Chairman Dillard and members of the board. I'm Peter Kirsten, Division Manager with the Regional Planning Group. And here to present the ordinance approving the 2026 budget amendment. So last month we shared about the process and details of this amendment. You'll recall that the service board submitted detailed requests in late March for operating budget initiatives that require additional 2026 funding. RTA staff vetted the request using the following evaluation criteria, as well as reducing the overall dollar amounts to a target of approximately 130 million, which is less than half of the total unallocated funding. So the criteria included prioritizing improvements for investments in public safety and increased services, alignment with NEDA Act priorities, immediate needs in 2026, and then the availability of alternative funding sources, namely reserves at each of the service boards. The list of requests were finalized at the April 2nd meeting of the budget working group. And then that initial list was presented at the April meeting to this group. It is unchanged today as we seek board approval. Public comment on the budget amendment was open from April 20th through May 8th and was promoted via social media, RTA newsletter, and the RTA website. More than 40 comments were received from the public via email. The Transit is the Answer Coalition meeting held on April 29th drew 100 plus attendees. Comments received via email included several in support of the proposed amendment and many that offered additional alternative recommendations for investment. Overall, comments submitted across platforms were largely positive, with riders and the public excited to see improvements advancing this year. We summarized the coalition meeting in a blog post online and posted the complete video to the RTA YouTube channel. All public comments submitted through email are posted online and linked in the board agenda. So in the following slides, we'll provide added detail in a couple areas that received the most public input. First up is public safety. Attendees at the Transit is the Answer Coalition meeting supported the investment in law enforcement while also highlighting the need for non-police initiatives. So the budget amendment funds more sworn officers on transit. That includes the Chicago Police Department through the VSEP program, Cook County Sheriffs, Metro Police, and additional law enforcement support at PACE facilities. The budget amendment also includes bus shields for PACE operators. CTA had already funded bus shields in their 2026 budget. It includes the NEDA Task Force and Office of Public Safety Administration. Both are requirements of the NEDA Act, as well as crisis intervention specialists and outreach programs and additional state and county health and human services support. So this is an unprecedented investment with partnering law enforcement agencies that really complements many of the non-police interventions and initiatives that are already taking place or will be advanced with the amendment. On the service side, comments were overall very supportive of the budget amendment. We want to stress, and we stressed this in the meeting as well, that the amendment alone does not capture all of the service enhancement coming online in 2026. So combining 2026 budgeted service enhancements with the amendment, we see service improvements coming to every area of the region. So on CTA, this includes 4 additional frequent bus network routes, extensions to the 10 and 57 routes, and critical upgrades to reliability for both rail and bus, among other improvements. Metro will pilot Rock Island Regional Rail as called for in the NEDA Act and is adding trains across lines on the system, as well as converting remaining flag stops on the Metro Electric to regular service stops. PACE is improving weekday and weekend frequency and hours of service on 8 routes, in addition to staffing all garages for weekend service, which again will unlock future service additions across the suburbs. The map on screen kind of shows where all of these service enhancements take place across the region. And then I also wanted to mention to the board just some initial regional service planning work that is happening now. So this is a consultant-supported effort to begin work that NETA will develop in future months and years into what will become the regional service plan and service planning process. So the work now includes cataloging all 2026 service changes, looking for areas to coordinate, identifying ways to kind of regionalize existing network planning and studies that are being done at each service board. So that includes bus vision and the frequent network at CTA. That includes the system-wide network plan at Metra and then revision at PACE. And then lastly, some initial analysis that we're doing at key interagency transfer locations. We're creating a tool to kind of assess transfer times and making recommendations on how to improve connectivity. All of this, again, is meant to set up NETA for success, early success. The map on screen shows the 50-plus locations that we've started with. We do plan to come back to the board later this summer with an update on these efforts and more detail. Moving to land use, the amendment increases funding for the Access to Transit program projects. These are small-scale capital projects that improve access to the regional transit system for pedestrians and bicyclists, often implementing recommendations from studies that we've completed through the other program, the community planning program. The RTA selects projects into Access to Transit via a competitive application process that considers each applicant's project alignment with the program criteria. The latest application period ran from November 22nd through January 16th, 2026, during which 34 applications were received. Applications were evaluated by a team of staff members, facilitated discussions with the applicants, and obtained feedback on each proposed project from the service boards and from CMAP, the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. Based on this evaluation, 21 projects are recommended for funding. They are listed on the slide and shown on the map. The projects represent a variety of pedestrian improvements, bicycle infrastructure, transit station upgrades, and connections from the regional trail network to transit. The preliminary project budget totaled approximately $10 million, which will be funded by roughly $1 million in local match from applicants, $3 million from the budget amendment, and then $6 million coming from federal CMAQ funding, which NETA staff will apply for in the fall. Many of these projects can begin the engineering process as early as this summer. On fare programs and customer information, again, the biggest item is expansion of the access pilot to CTA and PACE. Bringing an income-based reduced fare program to all fixed route services across our region this fall. Merging the pre-tax transit benefit programs offered by CTA and RTA into one unified regional program. And then advancing an accessible and unified rider experience through digital signage, pilot upgrades that will complement some of the service and transfer upgrades that we're targeting at key locations. Language and accessibility improvements are going to be standardized across the network. A full list, again, explanation of all these investments is linked in the memo and was presented at the coalition meeting. Anyone watching online now seeking more information can find that recording and additional details in the board memo as well. Here, I will turn things over to Doug for details on how the amendment will be executed.
Thanks, Peter. This slide summarizes the full 2026 amendment proposal of $132.2 million. The amounts by category and by service board are unchanged from what we presented last month. The two largest areas of investment, safety and security, and service, align with the priorities of our riders as stated in recent survey results. Allocation of $132 million of the $320 million of previously unallocated 2026 funding will leave about $187 million still in reserve at NETA. Same numbers here, but this matrix shows both dimensions of the proposed amendment, emphasizing that funding increases in the areas of customer information, fare programs, and land use remain centralized at NEDA. The amounts on the far right of the table correspond to the increases in 2026 discretionary funding contained in Schedule 1B of the proposed ordinance. This amendment is unique in that we are amending both the funding levels and the expense levels of the service boards concurrently. That was made possible by the deliberate and careful approach within the various working groups over the last few months, and we appreciate all of their hard work and cooperation. In addition to the allocation of this discretionary funding, Schedule 1E of the proposed ordinance has been updated to reflect changes in the budgeted 2026 cash flow to the service boards. These changes are unrelated to the increased funding and expenses of the budget amendment, but are necessary to address a potential problem at CTA as their operating reserves are expected to finally exhaust just before new funding sources of the NEDA Act begin to flow. I would like to stress that these changes involve shifts in the timing of the previously approved budgeted funding sources shown on the slide, but not any increases or decreases. The changes benefit not only CTA, but also Metro and PACE as well via earlier distribution of sales tax 2 receipts. In closing, with a vote of approval, the board will allocate $132.2 million in operating funding to the initiatives described earlier. This will leave an estimated $187 million of 2026 discretionary funding to be held in reserve at NEDA. The CTA, Metro, and PACE boards will each amend their operating budgets in June with the approved changes. Staff will monitor implementation of initiatives and begin reporting financial results against the revised budgets in July. This concludes our presentation. Back to you, Mr. Chairman, for any questions the board may have.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Questions, comments? Director Ross.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Not so much a question, but an observation. I participated in many, if not most, of the Transit is the Answer Coalition meetings. This last one I thought was outstanding. And while I know that there are a lot of staff members who work in the background to make that happen, I want to compliment Peter and Melissa in particular. I thought they did a fantastic job of both presenting the information and responding to questions from participants. The tenor of the meeting, because there's some money available now and a promise, of course, of improvements in safety and frequency of service, the tenor of the meeting just seemed much more positive, but those two people did an outstanding job. Thank you.
Amen. Over 100 folks attend those. So for transparency purposes, it's, it's pretty transparent and open process. And we take input well, I hope, I think. Dr. Sager.
Thanks, Chairman. I want to join Director Ross because I think that there's been just an exceptional effort here for the planning function. And I think the efforts are being followed by some very specific action. I mean, it's good to plan, but we have to have action. And so I truly commend you all for what has been done in terms of moving us forward and setting up, frankly, NEDA into a position where I think that they can start running, basically, with what you all have provided. One question with regards to service enhancements for 2026 and Metro, the Rock Island Regional Rail Pilot, is there any timeline associated with that?
To fully achieve kind of the pilot as outlined in the NEDA Act, they do need to hire quite a bit of staff. So they're actively recruiting for that, staff and trainers. Everything that we have presented in terms of service is we're relatively confident that, it is money that can be spent in 2026. So I think they are well positioned to act on that quickly. But there are a number of steps here that need to happen for it to come online this year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kotarek.
Want to also agree with Director Ross and Sagar about the great work at this, the working groups. This amendment, I think, is really within the spirit and letter of NEDA. It's regional, no more as this, how much is this thing getting, or how much is this service board or this geography. This is really regional. And I think, Peter, you explained very well the service planning that's happening. We've talked a lot about PACE having their own bus plan and CTA having their own bus plan. and we're seeing those silos starting to collapse. And this is embodied in the amendment. So kudos and well done. And I think we're going to have future amendments. So, anticipation of that, I'd suggest reaching out to the service boards and thinking about on the capital side, what are very quick capital investments that are very customer friendly and show early progress for NETA? Can we get an outline from the service board's perspective about what that might be? So if it's an elevator that's out, or there's been a door that's not working, what's out there that we might be able to address fairly quickly with the capital funding that's coming. The other piece that I'd suggest is a survey of some of the interventions on public safety. So we're making big investments in public safety. This is the ball game, is getting public safety both from a real standpoint and a perceived standpoint under control. And we saw in the survey results just from this last quarter, that's not moving. That perception that safety is not moving. So I think what would be good to take a look at is if we could narrow down the survey results into where those corridors are seeing additional intervention. Are we seeing the perception that this is working? Is this better? And then we can validate that a little bit to say, you know what, we've done this here on this corridor. We've looked at this on the Brown line, whatever it might be, and report that out and then iterate upon it. But overall, I think strongly support this and think it's a really good baseline for what we're up to. So kudos.
And
Yeah.
Tom and I have,
I can comment on the survey
Please
piece.
do.
Two things we're working on that. The panel survey will continue in the format it has. That is big and regional. And then we're also working on something specific to the law enforcement and non-police interventions. And again, tying it to specific riders in the corridors that are being targeted. So we hope to have more on that later this summer.
it's great. Tom and I have both spoken to the CTA and encouraged that type of sort of audit. The state's attorney's now very actively engaged. That helps immensely, and Sheriff Dart's been magnificent here as well. So, but it would be nice to see if what we're doing really pays dividends. I think it does when you look at these numbers, and I think you'll see in other surveys of our riders an improved attitude by them of safety. That's our primary number one concern. Director Gorman.
Thank you, Chairman Diller. And to echo my colleagues, fellow directors, this presentation, it just shows the importance of the collaboration of the various law enforcement agencies coming together, and that's going to be paramount and key to the success of this program to increase the ridership and the investment being made. We did discuss, as Director Katerik mentioned earlier, about the security surge, where we discussed, the various decreasing crime rates based on, investing in that security surge. And hopefully, with budget amendments and, shuffling around the numbers, with budgets just being a blueprint, that this investment will reflect in the public safety piece that we saw earlier, where I come from, 60% is a failing grade, 70% is a failing grade, so once that word gets out and it's reflective that, safety is out there, we're going to increase ridership, and we're going to have a better view and comfort and confidence in our system where, the riders will feel that. So thank you very much for that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Director Ryan is on virtually, but she is a little under the weather and her voice is not working as well for her today. And she's asked that we speak to, just provide a few comments that she's provided to us. So if I can have that time, to read her statement. I've spoken to a few folks in labor over the last few days. They're beginning to see the effects of increased security. We still have a ways to go, but what has been implemented so far is a positive first step. As we consider this budget amendment and NETA looks at future budgets, we need to ensure that the programs are working as intended. I've been told that police presence, especially the Cook County sheriffs, are great. But we all know there are only so many new law enforcement officers. As we increase programs like VSAP, do we have the officers to fill all those slots? As this group transitions to NIDA, I would encourage the new board to meet directly with the workforce to hear firsthand their experiences and how effective they believe the programs to be. I talked to CTA Acting President Nora Learson about taking a tour of the bus and train corrals to speak directly to workers. She likes the idea and is happy to help get that scheduled. If anyone else would like to join her, please let us know and we will support that coordination.
Thank you. Thanks, Nora. I would love to join that as well. Little things. Bus shields are in here. But there's nothing better than actually discussing the concerns of the individuals who are actually out there operating our system. And things I do believe are getting better, and they're going to even get better in the future. But thank you, Nora, very much. Questions, comments? Otherwise, how about a motion in a second to approve this item? Director Rotundo moves that we approve 8C, seconded by Director Ross. And with that, Madam Secretary, how about a roll call?
Dr. Alvarez, Dr. Carey,
Aye.
Dr. Colson, Dr. Gorman.
Aye.
Dr. Groven, Dr. Jenkins.
Aye.
Dr. Katarik.
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Yes.
Dr. Mondero.
Yes.
Dr. Rotundo.
Yes.
Dr. Ross.
Yes.
Dr. Ryan.
Yes.
Dr. Sagar.
Yes.
Dr. Sonoyka.
Aye.
Dr. Walker. and Chairman Dillard.
Yes, thank you.
14 ayes.
Thank you. We heard you, Nora, by the way. You do have a little voice left. Thank you very much. 8C is approved. Gentlemen, and to all of the RTA staff, excellent job. 8D is the ordinance approving the 2027 budget call for the annual operating budget, 2-year financial plan, and the 5-year capital program. And welcome, Mr. Lohnberg, to the podium or table.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, RTA Manager of Budget and Analysis, Doug Anderson. Today, along with my colleague, Manager of Capital Programs, Brian Lowenberg, we will be asking you to adopt an ordinance releasing the 2027 budget call, kicking off this year's operating budget and capital program development process. In this year of transition from RTA to NIDA, the general sequence of the budget development process remains the same, but with some new considerations and requirements which we'll cover during the presentation. The budget call lays out the budget process and the submittal requirements for the service boards. The budget working group has been discussing the new requirements of the 2027 budget for several months now. The call incorporates a budget calendar with generally earlier deadlines than in previous years. RTA and NIDA staff will work with the service boards through each step of the process, leading to board adoption of a comprehensive 2027 to 2029 regional operating budget and financial plan and 2027 to 2031 capital program. Notably, the 7 criteria for budget and program approval are unchanged within the NIDA Act, requiring a balanced budget built upon reasonable assumptions. The key components of the budget call are shown here. The regional economic outlook is the basis for the sales tax forecast used to set funding levels for the region, as well as for the ridership forecasts. Ridership has continued a slow and steady recovery, recently holding above 70% of pre-pandemic levels. And sales tax performance has remained strong in early 2026, but requires careful monitoring due to increased economic uncertainty. The budget call delineates the information and statistics to be included in the service board operating budget submittals, including ongoing implementation of required cost efficiencies. For the capital program, the service boards will be required to provide descriptions of all planned projects and to evaluate those projects using 14 evaluation themes. The 2027 budget cycle does bring a number of new considerations defined within the NIDA Act. We have 2 new operating revenue sources and a new funding allocation methodology for distributing the operating funding, which is based on the 2025 budget and a new share calculation using operational metrics. The Budget Working Group has been discussing that formula and has also been discussing the updated 25% recovery ratio requirement, which the budget must meet. A schedule for documenting almost $50 million of required operational efficiencies by October 1st has been incorporated into the call, with an ongoing goal of implementing more efficiencies on top of those. The 2026 expense increases approved in the previous agenda item will carry forward into 2027 and beyond. The call also reinforces the statutory prohibition on using operating funds for capital purposes and defers any action on fare changes until after the new NEDA board has been seated. There are numerous changes to the capital program requirements as well, including new evaluation themes and metrics. And with that segue, my colleague Brian Lowenberg will address the capital program portion of the call.
Thanks, Doug. I'm Brian Lowenberg, Manager of Capital Programs. For capital, we wanted to highlight some of the changes that are going into the 2027 to 2031 capital call. We've included several incremental steps into the call that will help build a base for future updates to the process as NEDA evolves. First, we have updated the capital project evaluation metrics to match all of the new evaluation criteria included in the NEDA Act. There are now 14 evaluation themes that are measured with 18 metrics. The two new themes are service standards and ridership, and the updated metrics include environmental protection impact, accessibility improvements for transit vehicles, accessibility improvements for stops and facilities, racial equity and mobility justice, and impact on service standards. The Budget Working Group worked to vet these proposed new evaluation criteria, which were also presented to CMAP and the Governor's Office for review before being included in this call. Included in the budget call requirements is a guidance document on how to evaluate projects based on all 18 metrics. Capital is also including a new exhibit to capture the full budget estimate of all projects that are included in the program. We expect that this data will be helpful in reviewing and prioritizing projects and funding as part of NEDA's new responsibilities. Second, I wanted to mention performance-based programming. All state PAYGO and federal formula funds will be allocated based on the performance-based capital allocation process established back in 2021. New funding added for 2031 will have performance metrics applied, and withholding will occur for service boards that do not meet the two established capital delivery performance goals. Service boards again will be allowed to apply for exemptions to the calculations and to request adjustments to the state start date of projects based on allowable documented delays. We expect these adjustments will be included into the allocations presented in the marks this year. The performance-based process also requires 20% of projects to be focused on key regional priorities for each year. For 2027 to 2029, accessibility and equity are the key priorities, and for 2030 and 2031, reduction in operating cost and reduction in climate impact or improvement to environmental protection have been selected. As in the past years, the project evaluation submittals will be due 2 weeks before the operating budget, and the remaining capital data is due 1 week before the operating budget. Now let me turn it back to Doug, and he'll give a full rundown of the 2027 budget timeline.
Thanks, Brian. I'll now close with a summary of the proposed 2027 budget calendar. Key board meeting dates are shown in brown, and as I mentioned earlier, the entire timeline has shifted somewhat earlier due to a required budget adoption deadline of November 30th. In early June, staff will provide the service boards with preliminary estimates of the 2027 operating and capital funding levels within the already established Budget Working Group. Staff will then present recommended funding levels and recovery ratios to the board in July. Early adoption of the funding amounts will facilitate the earlier timeline. The service board's proposed budget and capital programs will be submitted to NEDA staff over the course of September, almost a full month earlier than in prior budget cycles. This is necessary to get the submittals consolidated into a proposed regional budget and capital program prior to the October board meeting, where service board leadership will present their budgets and field questions from the newly seated NEDA board. Required public hearings and county board briefings will take place in October and November. before the NEDA board considers the budget and capital program for adoption at the November 19th meeting. Finally, in a change of sequence necessitated by the earlier timeline, the individual service boards will adopt the 2027 budgets and programs at their December board meetings after the NEDA board approval. This entire schedule is subject to modification as we work through the development process with the budget working group, and we'll be sure to keep the board posted on any significant changes. That concludes our presentation, seeking board approval to release the 2027 budget and capital program call. Back to you, Chairman Dillard, for any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Brian and Doug. Questions, comments? Director Mondero.
Hi, good morning. Thanks, gentlemen. This question is more for Brian. And I'll start with the anecdote. I just went to visit family in San Francisco, took BART from SFO to Oakland and Berkeley, and the BART system had these beautiful, spiffy, high barrier gates. And I actually was surprised because my experience on BART was safer than I thought it would be. And when I talked about this with family and friends out there, they said that the high barrier gates seem to make it so. And so I'm wondering, when I'm looking at the key priorities, I don't see safety as a priority. And I'm wondering, like, sure, high barrier gates can also help with operating expenses, but how does safety factor in onto the priorities for capital?
Yeah, for sure. So again, there's 14 metrics overall, right? 14 themes. Safety and security have their own special evaluation, right? And I think, especially as we progress to NEDA, I think the new board can direct which priorities might be weighted higher as we're building out the new programs.
You know, in New York has gone to high barrier gates. We're doing some here in Chicago, and it's been very clear that the federal government believes that, I call them jumpers, that there's a correlation between jumpers and crime. So I know that the CTA is focused on higher barrier gates where physically possible. And what the state's attorney and the sheriff and the CPD are doing on the red line south clearly is going after anyone that comes onto the system as somebody who jumps the gates, so to speak. And again, there's the feds really believe there's a correlation between crime, and that's where Director Koterick and I with the CTA want to see some audit of how things are working. But much of the crime is committed by people who don't belong on the system and literally don't, Dennis, go, and I see him in my vision now, jump the gates. So, but good point. The Bay Area has had their challenges, as Leanne will attest. Tom, Director Koterick.
I'll also emphasize both of the points made, and perhaps it's appropriate during the budget call to focus more on what the activities are and the investments in that regard, because this is across the region. It also applies to Metra, who has been looking at the inability to collect fares. Sometimes the train is just too crowded. And so I look at this issue as a revenue issue and a fairness issue, and one that we really have to pay attention to as we're moving forward with a income-based program, so that we're taking off the table. If you cannot afford to use the system, you'll be able to use the system. The Access pilot has been a success, and we're looking to expand it region-wide. So I think as we do those, let's comprehensively look at that and look up front, what are the investments, capital and operating we can do, and then measure what the results are. In the BART example, there's some good reporting that's been about this. It's lowered the maintenance cost of stations when they look at, behind the gate before folks are getting in. So let's have that comparable analysis. The other piece I wanted to emphasize as part of this budget call is we've got the efficiencies in here. There's a statutory floor. I want to really emphasize that's a floor. It's 49 million or some change, and it's
46.9.
46, and it's delineated very specifically in the law. I think that, let's really communicate, we want to see that higher. Let's encourage the service boards to come up with ideas of what those efficiencies are. And let's get very specific. I think our previous interactions with the service board leadership and our budget had been kind of high level. Well, real estate. What real estate? When's the timeline of that coming on board? And when will that be there? The last point is to look at the recovery ratio. We've cleaned it up. It's pretty much expenses in and cost out, and that's the number. And that number now will be lower, but it'll be more pure. And so seeing what they have to do to meet that number in the budget, if there's stresses or perhaps there's more revenue that comes back because we're really focusing on people paying on the system. What is that that has to change? Let's not assume that the General Assembly is going to give exemptions forever, and really be diligent in making sure we hit those targets.
Yeah, and I've said before, that's something that really needs to get looked at, and can they realistically meet what's in there? But that's one that NETA's going to have to sort of red flag and then talk to the legislature and IDOT about what's reality or what's possible. All right. Where are we at?
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Sagar.
No, thank you, Chair. I want to reiterate what Tom just talked about in terms of efficiencies. That's one of those kind of politically correct, if you will, very popular statements for any planning unit to put into their goals and their considerations. But I think we have to raise the bar on that. We really have to kind of raise it beyond the standard. And I think that we have to go to the service boards and say, these are the specific areas of efficiencies that we want to see, and we want to be able to announce those publicly. So whether that's with regards to personnel, whether that's with regards to purchasing, if that's with regards to, how we best, frankly, just use the people's resources. That's what the people are calling for. And I think we have to make that very, very, very clear in terms of our planning efforts. And so I would hope that we would provide some specific standards, if you will, or baselines, marks that we want to see accomplished by each of the service boards in terms of those efficiencies. Thank you.
And I wholeheartedly agree with that, but I'm always going to remind folks, we have the most efficient historically system per mile of any system in the United States of America. So our efficiencies are unparalleled to any other system, and there's always more to do and to make us more efficient while we're providing extra service or more frequent service. But our efficiencies historically in this area have been unmatched by any other mass transit system, not only in the United States, but the world. How about a motion in a second? Director Gorman moves, seconded by Director Carey, that we adopt item 8D. And with that, Joey, Madam Secretary, please take the roll call.
Dr. Alvarez?
Aye.
Dr. Carey?
Aye.
Dr. Colson? Dr. Gorman?
Aye.
Dr. Groven? Dr. Jenkins?
Aye.
Dr. Katar?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Yes.
Dr. Mondero?
Yes.
Dr. Rotondo?
Yes.
Dr. Ross?
Yes.
Dr. Ryan?
Yes.
Dr. Sagar? Monica?
Aye.
Dr. Walker? And Chairman Dillard?
Yes.
Yeah, 14 ayes.
And 8D is approved. Thank you, guys, very much. 8E is ordinance approving the combining financial report and certification compliance with the RTA Act of the recovery ratio for 2024. Good morning.
Thank you.
John.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is John Yu, and I'm here to give you overall about combining financial statement. Today, I'm presenting the fiscal year 2024 combining financial report, which provides a consolidated view of the financial result of the RTA and the three service board, CTA, Metro, and PACE. The RTA Act requires this report to be present at the comprehensive picture of the overall financial condition of the regional transit system. Although our independent auditor do not issue an opinion on this combining financial report itself, they do perform certain review procedures. In addition, each of those financial statement includes in the report has been audited by the respective independent auditors of the RTA and 3 Service Board. We are joined today by representative from the RSM, our independent audit firm, who will present the required communication and highlight key matters in accordance with the professional auditing standard. Bill.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Chairman. Here today, we have presented the combined 2024 financial statements. This takes, as John mentioned, the 3 service boards and the RTA and shows a combined view for a region-wide evaluation of the numbers associated as of December 31, 2024. In addition, this includes information on the recovery ratio and disclosure around the certified recovery ratio finalized and included by the RTA based on the information provided by the 3 service boards. This report is in final draft format, and are ready to issue with the approval of the board. We'll take questions at this time.
Are there questions?
Can the outside auditor mention his full name, please, for the minutes?
Oh, sorry. Bill Sarb, partner with RSM.
Thank you. Thanks, Bill. We see your face a lot. So just got to put it on the record itself. And John Yu is our staff representative for this purpose as well. Questions, comments? If not.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. At this time, staff will respectively request that the board conduct a vote on following ordinance approving of the 2024 combining financial report, which certifies the recovery ratio required by the RTA Act. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Bill. How about a motion in a second? Dr. Brian Sager makes the motion that we approve 80, seconded by Director Michael Lewis. And with that, Madam Secretary, please take the roll.
Dr. Alvarez, Dr. Carey,
Aye.
Dr. Colson, Dr. Gorman,
Aye.
Dr. Groven, Dr. Jenkins,
Aye.
Dr. Tarek,
Aye.
Dr. Lewis,
Aye.
Dr. Mondero,
Yes.
Dr. Rotundo,
Yes.
Dr. Ross,
Yes.
Dr. Ryan,
Yes.
Dr. Sager,
Yes.
Dr. Sonoyka,
Aye.
Dr. Walker, and Chairman Dolan.
Yes.
14 ayes.
Thank you. And item 8E is approved by the board. 8F is the ordinance to adopt a coordinated human services transportation plan, also known as HSTP. And Heather Mullins, good morning.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the board. My name is Heather Mullins. I'm the Division Manager of the Local Planning and Program Management Group here at the RTA. And today I'm presenting the 2026 Human Services Transportation Plan, also known as HSTP, for your consideration for adoption. So start with what is an HSTP? The HSTP identifies transportation needs for seniors, people with disabilities, and people with low incomes, and recommends goals and strategies to address those needs. The HSTP is a federally required document to continue to receive Section 5310 funding, of which the RTA is the co-designated recipient for Northeastern Illinois. It's also required to be updated every 5 years, and the previous plan was adopted in 2021. So we began the planning process in June of 2025 with the project kickoff. We conducted a demographic analysis and prepared a comprehensive inventory of transportation providers throughout the region. In the fall, we shifted the project towards stakeholder and public engagement. We conducted focus groups, stakeholder interviews, and public meetings to better understand transportation challenges and unmet needs directly from riders, providers, and community organizations. And at the beginning of 2026, we used that input to identify the most critical needs identified through the process and develop the plan's goals and policy framework. And then finally, in spring 2026, we refined the strategies and finalized the plan that is before you today. So the planning process requires robust public engagement with key stakeholders, including older adults, individuals with disabilities, human service providers, and the public. The Project Advisory Committee, also referred to as the PAC, served as a steering committee for the project. The PAC is a standing committee that meets quarterly to discuss the HSTP and Section 5310 program that includes service board staff, county-level transportation providers, and human service agencies and advocates. So during the planning process, we convened 4 Project Advisory Committee meetings, conducted 4 focus groups with 47 total participants, 26 stakeholder interviews, 2 virtual public meetings, and distributed an online survey. So I want to describe the study area for this plan as it covers the metropolitan planning area, which is a slightly larger geography than the RTA service area that includes the urbanized portion of Kendall County, portions of Grundy County, and select townships in DeKalb County, in addition to our 6-county service area. So through this process, unmet needs emerge through a combination of technical analysis and extensive community engagement. That includes limiting operating hours and days create barriers to using transportation for local or multi-jurisdictional trips, especially on nights and weekends. Geographic boundaries create fragmented trips. Complicated information and lack of navigation assistance create rider insecurity. Trips costs or the fares can be cost prohibitive and inconsistent. And providers' limited capacity for trips makes transportation inaccessible without advance notice. So in response to these findings, the plan establishes 6 goals that meet those needs. The goals focus on expanding coverage, improving coordination, modernizing systems, and making it easier for riders to access essential services. I'll touch on each goal and the associated strategies on the next slides. Okay, so goal number 1 is to ensure countywide service coverage by focusing on closing geographic gaps in service at the county level. So this goal emphasizes working with counties and local partners to move toward more coordinated county-wide service models that provide more seamless coverage across jurisdictions. County-led coordinated services are operated in all counties with the exception of Cook County, and we are working with DuPage on a coordination study right now. These counties have been doing an excellent job of expanding their services to include full county coverage, all of the support of Section 5310 funding. Goal number 2 is to conduct a regional dial-ride study, which is also aligned with requirements in the NEED Act. This study will evaluate existing services and develop recommendations for greater coordination, including more consistent policies, service levels, and funding approaches across the region. And we intend to start work on this later this year. The third goal focuses on strengthening subsidy programs that support paratransit services. Currently, these programs can be fragmented and difficult to navigate. The plan recommends coordination of similar programs at the county level, developing and monitoring performance metrics and implementing action plan number 2. The fourth goal focuses on modernizing scheduling and vehicle location software. This includes improving back-end scheduling and coordination, as well as advancing a more unified customer-facing platform for trip planning and real-time information in line with NEED Act requirements. Together, these improvements are intended to make the system more efficient and easier to use. The fifth goal recognizes that access to suburban jobs, healthcare, and other essential services remain a key challenge. Strategies include expanding service hours, improving pedestrian and bicycle access to transit, supporting equitable transit-oriented development, and developing a regionally coordinated transit service plan as required by the NEED Act. The sixth goal focuses on making the system easier to understand and navigate by enhancing travel training and education through stronger partnerships and better communication, so riders can confidently choose the best option for their needs. That wraps up the goals. So our next steps here, by adopting this plan, the RTA is meeting all federal requirements for receiving Section 5310 funding, and NEDA will be in a position to implement this plan. We'll distribute the plan and provide presentations to impacted groups and agencies. Our near-term efforts include advancing the regional dial-a-ride study this fall and preparing for the next Section 5310 call for projects, which will be next spring, and continuing coordination across agencies. And while this is a regional plan and NEDA can support and lead many of the goals, collaboration with other agencies will be necessary to fully implement the plan goals. That does wrap up my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Heather. Any questions? Director Carey?
Quick question, thank you. The first goal, NEDA will work in partnership with DuPage County to create a borderless countywide, coordinated countywide transit service. What does that mean exactly? When you say borderless across all
Across the
counties?
county, yeah, currently, so DuPage County does have Ride DuPage,
Mhm.
which is somewhat of a coordinated service, but it doesn't include the whole county. There are certain townships that are currently involved in that program, but it's not countywide. So the study that we're looking at will look at their existing Ride DuPage program and how to advance that to incorporate more townships and more municipalities across the county.
Okay, so borderless within the county. We're not
Correct,
looking at crop
correct.
counties at the moment.
They can also look at and consider policies that allow them to go beyond the county borders, perhaps a couple miles into adjacent counties, which is what some counties currently do.
Okay, thank you.
And in DuPage, Pat, I mean, we would have some townships that, or some municipalities that are in multiple counties.
Yeah.
Director Lewis?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to inquire on the cost side of the equation. How'd you handle looking at trying to right size the price and what did you benchmark it against?
Yeah, so we didn't put specific costs with each of the goals. We did put kind of a range of what we thought the cost might be. A lot of these are significant investments. I think some of the shorter term things we're looking to do have kind of a less of an expense involved with them. That includes doing some of these studies with the counties to look at advancing or expanding their services to countywide services. There are existing federal resources that can be used for those programs. We've also budgeted money already through the Section 5310 program to conduct that regional dial ride study. So some of these things we can advance fairly quickly. Some of them are going to involve more of an investment. Yeah.
So I was thinking about the cost to the rider. I think you're talking about the cost to the system, but in terms of the individual riders to make it competitive and attractive, is that also being incorporated?
That is something that we're going to look at in terms of what the fares could be. And I think that's something that we can address through this regional dial ride study, is making sure we have fares that are both attainable for riders, but also consistent across all these different services, because they vary greatly right now.
Director Rotundo?
Excuse me, so then with a buy-in partnership with townships, more townships would get brought into financing and supporting the program.
Correct, that is the intent. And a lot of the countywide services that are existing in some of the other counties, they did take existing township services and incorporate them into the county-wide service, like in McHenry County. McHenry County actually took over that expense from the townships for operating that service, so.
Great program. Thank you.
Well, seeing no other questions, how about a motion and a second to approve the plan? Director Jenkins moves, we approve it. Director Alvarez seconds, and with that, Madam Secretary, let's take a roll call on the Human Services Transportation Plan.
Director Alvarez.
Aye.
Director Carey.
Aye.
Director Colson.
Aye.
Director Gorman. Aye. Director Groven. Director Jenkins. Director Katarik.
Aye.
Director Lewis.
Yes.
Mandera.
Yes.
Director Rotundo.
Yes.
Director Ross.
Yes.
Director Ryan.
Yes.
Director Sager.
Yes.
Director Sonoyka.
Aye.
Dr. Walker and Chairman Dillard.
Yes.
14 ayes.
Thank you. That plan is approved. Thank you very much, Heather, for spearheading that very, very important part of what we do here. With that, items 8G through 8I are the approval of the contract and expenditure items as they appear on the board agenda. These items for consideration are 8G is an ordinance authorizing a contract for human capital management system. 8H is an ordinance authorizing the purchase of excess liability insurance coverage by the RTA's loss financing plan and the joint self-insurance fund. And 8I is the approval of travel expenses. I know Allison Novak is here for 8G and 8H questions. Did Leanne, you wanted to add something at all? Any questions on any of these? If not, how about a motion and a second to approve 8G through 8I? Director Lewis moves that we approve these items, seconded by Director Rotundo. And with that, Madam Secretary, please take a roll call.
Dr. Alvarez, Dr. Carey,
Aye.
Dr. Colson, Dr. Gorman.
Aye.
Dr. Groven, Dr. Jenkins, Dr. Katarek,
Aye.
Dr. Lewis,
Yes.
Dr. Mondero,
Yes.
Dr. Tondo,
Yes.
Dr. Ross,
Yes.
Dr. Ryan,
Yes.
Dr. Sauger,
Yes.
Dr. Sonoyka,
Aye.
Dr. Walker, and Chairman Dillard.
Yes.
14 ayes.
So 8G, 8H, and 8I are approved. Thank you very much. Item 9 is new business. Any new business to come before the board? Yes, Director Colson.
Regarding the agenda for our June 1 sales tax meeting, the legislature has delegated to this board by the statute to the ability to raise this sales tax by a quarter. And I noted that in 2008, the legislature did that directly. And so as the lawyer in me is a little concerned about legal challenges to this. And so I would like two things. I'd like to see a copy of the ordinance if I could, which I haven't seen. And if there's any legal analysis as to how they get around Article 9 of the state constitution. I'm sure there are smart people in Springfield who've looked at this, but I haven't seen any analysis.
We will get you that. And the ordinances or ordinance that'll be presented, Bill, have been run through now the governor's office, the Department of Revenue. So we're very coordinated with the state on how we draft that ordinance, the timing of it, et cetera. And, I assume their delegation of authority is very similar to what many things in our ordinance are, or any similar body of the state. But we'll get you the constitutional look at how they can delegate that authority to us. But we have so many things in our ordinance today that are delegated to us. This would just be one other item. Council?
Yes, sure. Good morning. So actually this is really close. In 2008, the Finance Committee for this board took a vote on the sales tax increases. It's 3 separate ordinances. And then that was also voted on at the board meeting and approved at the board meeting. I was actually just reading the transcript of those proceedings last night. So, and we will get you a copy of the ordinances, but it is 3 separate ordinances, but you can take it as one vote. So we did do the same thing last time though. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I can get it for you.
And I have
no
a
problem.
policy wonk on this stuff too. So I'm going to look at that as well. No, thank you very much. But I'm very comfortable with what they're doing. But I'll look at it too, out of curiosity, if nothing else. All right, that's it, I think, for new business. On adjournment, our next meeting will be June 1st. So it's June 1st at 9 a.m. So you get an hour of extra time from today. But June 1st is a different date than normal for our normal June getting together. So it's June 1st, 2026, 9 a.m. is our next meeting of the RTA Board of Directors. Any further business to come before the body today? Seeing none, how about a motion and a second to adjourn? Director Cotard moves that we adjourn, seconded by Director Alvarez. And with that, all those in favor of adjournment say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and